nothing means anything until you have a tune. And a tune, that's the job. You sit there in front of the piano, and there are 88 notes on that keyboard, of which only 11 mean something before they repeat in the octave. And you know everybody else has played those notes before, and somehow you have to figure out how to write something original with it, but at the same time not too original because it has to be appropriate to the story. I mean, I'm not doing concert music. I am trying to be telling the parallel story that the filmmakers are taking. So there are restrictions, yet you're supposed to be completely free. So there are contradictions in everything I do. A great example of all of that is actually Beethoven's Fifth. Not that I'm comparing myself to Beethoven, but da-da-da-da. Every kid's walked up to the piano and gone da-da-da-da. But he knew somehow that out of those notes, you could go and build castles in the sky, that you could invent something, you could tell a story with those notes. They're so simple. That's what you need to figure out, how to find the simplest thing to set the thing in motion. But you have to, at the same time, and this is why I sit there day in, day out, driving myself crazy. You have to make a decision that whatever those opening notes are, whatever the first thing is that you have to say, is actually going to hold water, is actually going to somehow take you through this vast arc of a story. And not halfway through the movie you suddenly go, you know something? I can't make these notes become mournful, happy, exciting, all the different personalities they need to take on. And sometimes you just have to kill your favorite babies. Even though you're trying to write from inspiration, you're trying to be relatively practical. That one of the things I don't do is I don't use a lot of exuberant key changes in my music. Or even if I do, I try to always come back to my home key. Part of that is practical. I like writing in D, and everybody thinks it's because I'm lazy, which is true, but it's not the reason I write in D. I write in D because in this modern day and age, the basses can go down to C, which is their open string, but they can't do vibrato on the open string. So D is actually a good note where they can still do a little bit of vibrato. And it's nice that if you go from it's satisfying, So if I have to give you an answer, if I have to complete a phrase and I have to give you an answer, I like when it ends on a note that basses and cello and violas, okay, violins is a different matter, can land on in a satisfying way. At least I set myself up to have that possibility. The whole score might never do this, and it might just be, up here. But I don't know that at the beginning. So if I pick something that gives me the most freedom, the most possibilities, I'm at least starting on solid ground. I think of everything. I mean, look, wherever my hand falls, is a question, is an answer. I mean, it's just how I can make the question longer. It's just I think there's a natural way in music where you're basically having a conversation, or you want to have a conversation. Sometimes you leave it as a question with another question, and then if you really want to, and I mean it's just I'm not writing anything. I'm just it's. And I stop speaking because I feel I'm having the conversation right now with you. Ooh, it's a bit of a dodgy question here. I'm being a bit confrontational. And I can take the tension out. Get happier about it. So it's a language, So I don't know. I just always, I loved Thin Red Line because working with Terry Malick. One of the things he kept saying is that the question is more interesting than the answer, and the whole movie just asks questions. We never answer anything, It's like it's sort of a bit. It's a bit boring. Usually the answer is a bit mundane. So to maintain the tension, see if you can just raise the stake in the questions. If it's a love story, once she says yes, I'll marry you. We're done. And yes, some movies start at that point, but but very often the journey in this case is more interesting. The question is more interesting. So yes, I do think these tunes. No, I don't think them through. I just naturally gravitate towards things which ask questions. Because I think that's more interesting. All music is made up out of little fragments of ideas that you're trying to make into a cohesive sentence. I mean, so I had my first two words, as it were. And I knew it would work down there. And you have to test the DNA very quickly, Is it adaptable? Can it become? What can it become? And it's this thing. I mean, it is actually sort of storytelling. I mean, if you look at it as that's the question, and then what is it? There's a half an answer, which again ends on a question. And so part of what you want to do, of course, in all movies is it's like, when you work on a love story or a romantic movie, the last thing you want to hear is them saying "I love you" to each other. That's the part you want to postpone until the very, very last frame. Going back to you can't get any more banal than. Okay, so I changed it a bit. I made it more. Just on purpose because it felt mean, I wanted a bit of meanness in it. The fuck sort of a question is that? So and there's a little twinkle in it, and the obstacles we can put in its way are more interesting, and the crookedness we can, so part of what the tunes are trying to do, what the tunes automatically are trying to do, is set up questions which are half answered with another question at the end, so that they can drive forward. Does that make sense? So just have a listen. Little answer. There's a little flick of a question again at the end. That's quite a strong answer. This is just me seeing what happens if you have it down an octave so it's a bit more spooky, or that it sits under dialogue. And it's just sort of, I mean, it's not even much of a tune. It's just, it's a very efficient motif because it's short and succinct and says a lot in 4 bars. Chris was being very specific about, he was being very unspecific in his specificity by saying, hey, look, I'm just going to give you this page, but I'm not going to tell you what the movie is about. And he gave me this fable about what it means to be a father, and, you know, and he cleverly steered it in a way that I thought, you know, that it automatically made me think about my relationship with my son. So I wrote him this tiny, very personal theme. And then, you know, he told me, you know, this is a movie about the vastness of everything, you know, the expanse of the universe, you know, space and science fiction, etc. And it's epic and it's all these things. But what he had was, this is a very simple, you know, just, it's warm and it's small and it's intimate, and it meant, however, it's easy to go big. It's easy to throw the kitchen sink in. It's easy to go and get a big church organ and make a hell of a racket. But we knew we could always return to the heart of the story. You know, the heart of the story was, I mean, this tune couldn't be any simpler. And the great thing is, if you start with something which is so simple and so small and so, you know, just a few notes in the right order. I mean, I don't think there's this, I think there may be 1 or 2 tunes I've written that you can't actually just play with one finger. You know, the simplicity of the material lets you then go and expand outwards. You know, but if the heart of it, if the kernel of it is intellectually tight, it's emotionally tight, you got something. You know, it's like, I mean, I keep going to this, but you know, Beethoven's Fifth. It's all in those 2 notes. It's all he needed, you know, to go and then create a firework of amazing emotions, orchestration, excitement, you know, pathos, whatever you want. But, you know what you're talking about in your theme. Know what you want to say. You gotta be clear about that. It's very hard to write an instruction manual in music, you know, or a dentistry course in music. It's not the appropriate language, but it's an appropriate language to express emotion. And I think that's all that's happened over the centuries, that we are compelled to tell stories. We're compelled to make up stories. That's what film is about. That's, you know, we're compelled to tell the fable of our existence, of, you know, our human journey or whatever. And I think when we run out of words and when we run out of beautiful pictures, we have to resort to this other language called music. And I'm not trying to be profound, and I'm not trying to do anything significant. But you, when you spend a little bit of time thinking about it, you can actually express some fairly good things about the human condition in notes that you might not be able to express quite as brilliantly in words.